Welcome to a Song and a Book podcast. I'm Song.
And I'm Book.
I'm Bhavya.
And I'm Eeshita.
And we are two friends talking about things on this podcast that no one really talks about in this world. So, today, Eeshita is going to tell us what we are going to do.
So before I start, the name of our episode is
ये जो देश है तेरा
and we have with us a very special guest, Kush Idnani, to talk about what it is like for Indian students to study abroad. And he's honestly the best case study that we could find in our 5 mile radius. And Kush actually got the best of both worlds. He did his BSc Mechanical Engineering at Case Western Reserve University in Ohio, USA, and he is currently pursuing his MSc in Mechanical Engineering at TU Delft in the Netherlands. So we are very happy to have him here, and he is a fellow social media friend as well because Kush is on social media as a cup of Kush. He is also an amateur guitarist and a very well experienced piano player, and we are just very happy to have you here with us.
Thank you for that incredible introduction. I'm also really glad to be here. And yeah, excited to talk about my experience and hopefully it helps some people who are stuck making decisions.
Definitely, as someone who has roamed around so much and experienced the best of the US, the Europe, my first question would be what is it like moving abroad that no one talks about?
I think when you're moving abroad to study, you get a lot of feedback from a lot of people who have never lived abroad, and that almost always isn't fully accurate to what their real experience is. One of the first things I want to talk about is the freedom of not having to report to your parents. I think that I've seen a lot of people move abroad, away from their parents, away from the control of their parents, really, and they really explode in some ways, doing things that maybe, at least in my opinion, that maybe they shouldn't be doing, and going beyond, reasonable limits for specific, uh, like in the use of drugs, in the use of alcohol, and that's not to say drinking is bad. I indulge every now and then, but sometimes you can do a little bit too much. So I think that the freedom of just not having your parents around to ask you where you are, where you are going, when you will come back, is quite a big thing about living abroad by yourself.
How do you navigate the control, like when someone goes abroad with and is exposed to not reporting to their parents for the first time? How do you navigate it?
You're with a group of other people who have also probably never lived by themselves, and it really helps to take care of each other in some ways. There's a fine line though, between taking care of each other and becoming someone's parent. And there's a lot of people who have never lived abroad or well, never lived alone rather, because you can live alone in India as well. But people who have never lived alone who don't understand how it is to be fully independent, and that's something that people do have to navigate a little bit.
And by being independent, how do you navigate responsibilities?
Um, Responsibilities is certainly it's difficult, because it is a lot of not even the stress of actually doing the things. Like for example, you have to cook and you have to clean and you have to do everything yourself and when it's needed, and you can't really, at least with cooking, you can't put it off for later because you have to eat now, you know. Um, so I think the mental load of doing that is a lot more than the actual physical load of having to cook. It's just waking up every morning. I need to know what I'm having for lunch because I don't wake up early enough to cook breakfast, so I just eat cereal. But yeah, you have to know what you're gonna eat, and I start to relate to my mom a lot because every day at home in Mumbai, she asks us what we want for lunch, what we want for dinner, and I say anything is okay. And in my head, like, yeah, that's true, anything is okay. But now that isn't an answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, um, I think it's a lot of fun as well. I think it definitely it teaches you to live by yourself very well. It kind of throws you in the deep end, and you learn to work with it. You waste a lot of food in the first few months. You make food that tastes terrible sometimes, and then or you misproportion your food, and then you cook something and you have to throw it away, unfortunately, because it got spoiled. But eventually you do get it, and I think it's very validating when you get it.
Definitely. You learn how to be proactive and on your
Yeah.
toes, and that's like character
Yeah.
development.
You learn to become your own
Yeah.
parent,
Yeah, yeah.
away from your parents. Kush,
Mm.
what is it like to live with people from a different culture who've never really interacted with your bedside manners, your way of living, and your way of running a household? So, how does that look like?
I think the biggest challenge when it comes there is when your cleanliness standards don't match uh, between your roommates. So, for example, over here at in Delft, I moved into this new apartment. I was the first one of the three. We have three people in my apartment. So I was the first one to move in, and the place was disgusting. It was terrible, and that's purely due to the previous owners. So I went and I cleaned quite a large part of the apartment myself, which is fine. I'm happy to do that the first time. But I think my biggest struggle with my roommates is they know how to clean, but they don't know how to keep clean spaces clean necessarily. So it's a little bit of a struggle there, I think, because I'm I'm happy to regularly clean, and I clean my apartment, my room, quite often as well. And my only difference is that once something is clean, I try to not make it dirty again. But that's not, and the thing is that's also, especially with men, and um, not just Indian men, but I've noticed this a lot with Indian men. Um, you're not raised to know how to take care of the house, you
Yeah.
know. So in some ways, I understand that it is a very new experience for a lot of people, and obviously, I've been doing it for longer because I had to do it for 3.5 years during my bachelor's as well. So you have to be a little patient about it. You have to be communicative about it, and that's something honestly even I haven't done very well. Being communicative about the issues, because also then it feels sometimes like I'm always just complaining about how they're living, and it's a balance. You don't want to create a situation in your own apartment where you're roommates and you don't like each other, because that can be very stressful. Um, I've had roommates, sorry, not roommates. I've had friends who have lived with each other, and within a few months they like all hate each other, and then they have to continue to live together for the next 7 8 months, and it can get very ugly sometimes. So yeah, it's definitely it's a difficult balance to create, but I think it can be a lot of fun having roommates. Um, I think the best example I can go to is my last year of college, where it was me and two other friends. Three of us were living together. It was a really nice apartment, and we more or less matched in terms of our cleanliness habits, in the sense that we were all a little bit lazy.
Wow.
So you can't really blame someone else if you're also lazy. Uh, but the biggest benefit of having roommates, I would say, then was like every not every night, but like every few nights, what my roommate and I, we would just sit on the couch, we put some music on, and we'd be chatting till like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and just about life, what's going on. And that's definitely one of my most memorable experiences of college. So I I'm still very much in support of having roommates, which is contrary to the popular opinion, I would say, at least among people I know. But yeah, it can be a hit or a miss.
Like, are there any cultural differences that took you a while to get around?
Um, I'm vegetarian, so
Ah,
sometimes that can be something. Like I'm I'm I guess a little bit more in a fortunate position where I don't care that much if about cross contamination. So if we share pans and pots and cutlery and all of that, then I'm not bothered by it as long as people are washing it properly. And that has been a problem sometimes about the washing, but not always. And yeah, I mean, I guess I have a friend. She's living with one other Indian and one Korean girl, three of them together. And one day she opened her fridge and she found a live crab walking around, and it came as quite a surprise to her. I think understandably, um, and she was really pissed at her roommate, like for not, I don't know what to do with live crabs and how to store them, but yeah, you can be caught off guard sometimes by the habits of your
Like,
roommates.
why are you
That's why
storing a?
communication is important.
It's like, why are you storing a pet in a fridge?
Yeah,
As
yeah,
a non-vegetarian living in Maharashtra, this is such an everyday thing for me. I never realized that for other Indians this might be an issue. Having a
Okay.
crab in their fridge.
Okay, this is the
yeah.
first time I'm
Alive.
also listening to this story, dude.
You are also a vegetarian only.
Yeah, bro.
She's not vegetarian. She's non-vegetarian, my friend. It's not
Oh,
like she, and she's Bengali. Like they eat seafood, but um,
They don't keep
apparently
pets
not
in the
live
fridge.
crabs. Yeah,
the crab is more of a coastal thing. So
yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh god.
Hmm. Talk about food habits. Even I feel like at a lot of places, food is something that brings people together. It is always talked about. So, um, I just wanted to understand, like, what are cultural, like, these kind of cultural differences and habits, do they impact friendships and relationships?
I would say like absolutely, but for me it's been in a good way mostly. At least with Indians, it's not as much cultural differences. Like, for example, a very large proportion of the Indians here are South Indian, and uh, I'm more aware of culture in different parts of South India than I am in, for example, what it's like to be from Italy or from Brazil or something like that. So I think it impacts my friendships with non-Indian international students,
Yeah.
or with the Dutch students as well, a lot more than with Indian students. In the sense that it becomes a big bonding activity for us, um, because I think especially for my international friends, because for the whole first month or so, every new international person I met, the conversation always ended up going to how there are 22 official languages in India and there are 600 plus languages that people speak, and how it's even possible to run a country when everyone speaks something different, and um, the religious differences and territorial disputes. Geopolitics somehow becomes a huge conversation over here,
Everywhere, yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
the surface
but
level conversation you can have with everybody. It's
Right.
better than
mm,
discussing your deep dark traumas in the first meet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even the fact
that's
that
true.
when you are interacting with different people from different countries, you want to know about what's happening in their country, and then you
Yeah.
share what's happening in yours, and
Yeah,
you see expressions and a whole different way of thinking.
Yeah. True that.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think other than geopolitics, even there are. I think the religious differences is a big thing as well,
Yeah.
because the portrayal of India abroad is not always very accurate. So
Are we still snake charmers and the circus going people?
no, not to most people, but then every now and then you meet someone who is baffled by the fact that there are highways in India. So
Okay.
y-
Interesting.
yeah, it's there are. I have this is from personal experience. I met someone. This was a few years ago, but I met someone who was genuinely surprised. So yeah, I mean,
That's
some
so
people have grown up
interesting.
unaware.
So India needs a better PR agent.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
Yeah,
come on. Can we not be like,
Like our GDP
yeah.
is talked about so much. This country boasts about its GDP being the top four, and
mm,
still, highways should not be in question.
yeah,
I also get curious about what do international and different culture relationships look like
Yeah.
in friendships and relationships, because I see this couple that's called Nick and Carrie on Instagram, and I find them so cute, where Nick is from India and Carrie is, I think, Korean based. She's Korea based, and these guys studied in Canada and they met in Canada, and now they're a couple.
Nice.
Very cute couple of Instagram. So, what's it like?
Uh,
If you
I
know some
haven't
story.
been in any international relationships, but I have friends who have, uh, and it can go in multiple ways. I think the cultural differences can be a big plus, or it can also be a very big hindrance.
Hmm.
Um, I think the biggest, easiest example is my friend who was dating a girl from Pakistan, and
Oh.
he's Indian, and he had to move back to India after college, and there was not much potential for that to work out once that happened, because obviously she can never move to India, and she didn't want to either. But
Hmm.
so it became a whole thing that, I mean, it's a difficult situation to be
Right,
in,
right,
and
right.
it's a very difficult
I
uh,
think it's a very case
situation for both of
based
them.
thing.
And imagine them watching
Yeah.
cricket together.
Oh my god.
That's just gonna be a bloodbath.
Neither of them like cricket, thankfully.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Um, but also, so I also have a friend who's been dating someone who's American, and he is Indian, and that's been going very well. For example, I think it must have been now 3 years or something like that, 3 or 4 years, and they have been short distance relationship, long distance relationship, everything, and
Nice.
it's been it's worked out for them so far at least.
How do you date somebody who doesn't speak your language? And that's something that
You teach them
really
your
icks
language.
me. Because, like, there's a different, like, I speak four Indian languages. So I speak
Mm,
Hindi, Bhojpuri, Awadhi, and English. English, rather.
mm.
And a different part of my personality comes out when I speak those languages. So I don't understand being with somebody who is oblivious to your cultural background in terms of your linguistic patronage. Not patronage, like inheritance.
I think completely different because for me it's like, I can just instantly connect to someone who's listening to the same music as me, who
Yeah.
likes the same painters and same movies as me. So language is just a form of expression and not exactly the whole um, way that you express things. It is just a part of it. So I feel like it's still possible. It depends on what kind of. It depends on what your thinking is if that is matching with the other person or not.
I,
Yeah, I would
yeah,
I
it's
would
okay.
agree.
Like
Like I agree with both of you in some ways. I think language is a big deal. Like in the sense that um, yeah, I also agree that a different part of me kind of speaks when I'm speaking a different language. But you, I don't know, it's something that I think can be worked around in some ways, because there are really people who genuinely want to learn your culture, and the other way around. Like you'd
yeah,
have to
exactly.
want to learn their culture as well. So I don't know. I think I keep saying that I can't imagine myself dating someone who's not Indian, but maybe it's possible. Who knows?
Even I kind of agree with you on that because for me, like, language becomes a big deal because I also want to make it a point that my kids speak all the languages I do.
See.
But if they have an option where they can learn a popular language which is popularly known across the globe, then I don't want them to just end up speaking English or maybe learn a bit of
Yeah,
French here and there because it's the easy way around. I want them to sit
yeah,
down and speak to me in Bhojpuri as well. It might be
Interesting.
I
something that
agree.
they only do at home, but I want them to learn that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I also want that for my kids to know more than just English. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That was actually a discussion that probably planted a seed of thought in other people.
Definitely, yeah.
And now, coming to the next thing, like, one of the things that we are first introduced to before we move abroad are movies and books about what it is like to live abroad. So, do you think that the portrayal is accurate or is it something that's really bluffed up?
I think it's a little bit like in like the movies and the books, in the sense that movies will always be a little bit more exaggerated than real life. Um, but I think the main thing that is accurate, and I don't know if this is something you noticed while watching movies, but The cleanliness is certainly a big thing when you walk around in, well, barring some cities, and a lot of big cities can be a little dirty,
Hmm.
like for example a New York City type. But yeah, if you, I think it's a small town like that, for example, it's easy to walk around, to um, breathe clean air, uh, that kind of stuff, and I think that's a big deal, especially. Uh, yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest benefit to living abroad. Um, Other than that, I would say that if you want to go to like the old Bollywood movies,
Yeah.
there are it's I think it's very clearly it's very different from it, but I don't think there's a good explanation I can give you for why. I think there is it's something each person will have to experience themselves in some ways, because yeah, I mean, how you react to the new situation can just be so different from someone else. It's difficult to compare.
You know what comes in my mind when we talk about movies is that how Indian movies showcase foreign exposure and how foreign movies show Indian exposure.
Yeah.
And do we have like a lot of evidence where foreign movies like Hollywood has shown India in some light?
Actually, what I think they end up doing is that they make poverty porn out of it. Like you call a Slumdog
Slumdog,
Millionaire, that other movie Chippa. There is this other movie,
Life of Pi.
Life of Pi, Lion, the one with Dev Patel.
Yeah.
So they always talk about the Indian slums. They don't even move on to talk about the Indian middle class, and they do not acknowledge the Indian elite class at all. Like they,
I
yeah, continue, yeah.
uh, I Well, I agree with you. Obviously, India is portrayed not in a great light in Hollywood,
Hmm.
but I also think it's not portrayed in a great light in Bollywood in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the last time I've watched a movie about the Indian middle class is probably like Life in a Metro, uh,
I-
and I maybe there's more movies since then, but I haven't. Um, yeah, there's not a specific movie I can point out to. There are great emotionally charged movies
Hmm.
about political disputes that maybe we don't want to talk about, but and there's no dearth of those. But I think that Bollywood also has a little bit of a responsibility to portray India in the correct light, because even if you look at if you look at people from abroad who have watched Bollywood movies, I think it's quite common. In fact, I know a lot of people who have watched at least one Bollywood movie
Yeah.
who are not Indian, and it's the comments I get are always the one good thing they will say is that the dance sequences are usually very good.
Yeah.
They like the concept of having song and dance as a part of the movie, like
Not as a back
um,
score. Yeah.
exactly. But the one thing that becomes almost a joking matter in some ways is how unrealistic these movies can be,
Yeah.
in
Definitely.
maybe in the way they end, or maybe in um, realism of fight scenes, or if it's an action movie, or like stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I don't think we get enough real stuff from Bollywood,
Definitely.
especially recently.
And is it the same for the portrayal of living abroad?
um I don't know what you mean by that.
No, like we just spoke about right now about Bollywood movies in India and how unrealistic they can be in an Indian context also. But
Mhm.
are they similarly unrealistic for a foreign context?
uh
He just told that he is not.
Less so.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like
I would say that,
yeah, go on.
sorry, I would say it's less so for in a foreign context, because it's more relatable. Like if you watch a movie, like an American made movie, for example, even as someone who has never lived in America, not even just someone who has studied abroad and all of that, like um the 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 mundane aspects of the movie, like just going to a coffee shop,
Hmm.
having a chat with the bartender, and then, well, barista, and then walking, waiting for your taxi, something like that, is a very real thing that, again, maybe I haven't watched enough Bollywood movies recently, but I don't see the real mundane parts of being human represented well in Bollywood movies recently. Um,
Mm.
Again, I could be very wrong. Maybe you could point out movies where this day to day life is portrayed better, but
Mm.
I cannot right now off the top of my head.
I just feel like when it comes to the portrayal of India in particular,
Mhm,
they either show it as a ghetto, or they show
mhm,
it as a place of absolute spiritual awakening, or they show it as a place where we are still stuck in time. So, like,
correct.
there was
Yeah.
80 Days Around the World by Jules Verne.
Yep, yep.
It showed
Mhm,
India as a backward society where women like Oda did not have any
mhm.
autonomy over their body, and they had to be rescued by these two white men.
But again, the
And
book
yeah,
is written
by
back
a
in
white. No,
18
but I'm just saying
hundred.
back in time. And if we even come to, let's say, 2010, this
Yeah,
book came out by Elizabeth Gilbert, who's, by the way, my favorite author in the entire world. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
yeah, of course.
And over there also, she showed India as a place where she had her spiritual awakening.
Hmm.
And then, on the other hand, when we talk about Priyanka Chopra's book, Unfinished, she spends two entire pages just talking about what a magical, out of the world experience it was for her to see mashed potatoes for the first time. Like, I just, that dichotomy always gets to me. Like, why are we fetishizing the West to an extent where we are making something as simple as mashed potatoes the dish of the world, and at the same time we are stereotyping India
Exactly.
to whatever great extent we want to.
Yeah. I agree. India uh, very is not represented very well in Hollywood, clearly.
And I
And I
think,
think
yeah.
and I think also the fact that again Hollywood is purely American, but the fact that other white countries really are often represented decently well, as opposed to
Hmm.
India or other not just India, but like for example countries in the Middle East or other Asian
Yeah.
countries are represented as these lands, filled with poverty. And
Yeah.
again, they're not wrong, but it's like it's the only thing we ever see about India is poor people in slums,
Actually.
and that's not the case.
And I think the change has to start with India itself,
Mhm.
with the portrayal of how India is. We need more dramas that are showing a day in the life, slice of life, kind of
Mm.
comedies, kind of dramas where they show a normal Indian life of someone who's not just the middle class. We have to include every day. We can have characters from different spectrum of our classes and how they go about our life, because that is the thing. People don't know that India has like 22 plus official languages. They don't know what our culture is, and that depiction, if we want our country to communicate what we stand
Mm.
for, it has to come from a media portrayal like that. And
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
even being in India and being a movie aficionado, I cannot remember last time I saw a movie where I'm seeing um, a good life represented, in
Hmm.
India. And that makes me question,
I
are
mean,
we
they're
happy?
usually not the mainstream one, but the parallel cinema and the indie cinema that
Yeah,
brings you what
Mhm.
you're actually looking
Yeah,
for. So
definitely.
that's
yeah.
there.
Indie cinema is very, very underappreciated
We
in my
need to
opinion.
fund them more. People watch them more so that they can be shown in
Yeah.
theaters instead of the movies that box office support.
Let's not get ourselves noticed by the Bollywood mafias.
That was a really good discussion that we had, right?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun talking about movies, and that also brings me portrayal of Indians brings me to the question that, do you feel there are any micro acts of racism towards Indian that are expressed when you are living abroad?
I'm quite fortunate. I think that I have not really been a victim of any kind of, well, any direct forms of racism. Um,
Hmm.
you know that most systems are not built for minorities in the West.
Hmm.
So there's that, but that's not something in my control. That's not something in the control of the day to day life of of the average person, you know. So I wouldn't really talk much about that. But other than that, I think honestly it's been very welcoming and in a surprising way, especially over here in the Netherlands and in the US actually both. Because I mean, especially recently, we hear so much about the US and about racism and about um, racism everywhere growing. And I won't deny that that is true online, but among my friends and among people I met over here, it genuinely, I feel like there's not much to say even about racism. I have some friends who have, I have one friend who is called, there's this, like, it's, I guess it's technically a slur in the US, but they call some Indians curry munchers, and I find it really funny because it's not a, like, that they call it a slur, I guess, but like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're right. You know, I do munch curry and I really like it too. But like, it's not always said out of malicious intent, but it's like kind of there is a thing that people have been called before. My friend once was, but like other than things like that, I feel like I haven't really experienced much racism. The only thing though is our accents sometimes are not easy to decipher. Um, So you'll have the regular, you know, your name spelled wrong in Starbucks, and your people ask you to repeat yourself a few times. Maybe you have to slow down. Maybe you have to like roll your R's a little bit for them. But other than that, yeah, I think that's just what it is to be abroad in a different country, not specific to India or racism necessarily.
Uh, that's a thing that people do a lot, by the way, like confusing South Asian people with Latin American people and calling both the groups curry munchers or spice mixers. And one thing that my uncle went abroad around 20 years back, and he was called a snake charmer to his face for being Indian.
That's crazy. That's wild.
And there are so many other subtle ways of just bringing out race in a conversation, like calling Indians
Mm.
coconut is another. uh,
That
just
is
think.
so
Oh
that
God.
Indians call it other Indians coconuts. That's not a
No, not
foreigners don't say
coconuts.
that.
Coconut, not coconuts wala. The other, like the racial
Really?
way of it. That you're
That's what
white
I'm
on the
saying.
inside, but you're brown on the outside.
That's a term used by other Indians,
And by
at least in my
others.
experience.
Yeah.
I've never heard a foreigner use it. I've never heard a foreigner even know of this term. I've only heard other Indians call other Indians coconuts.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a, I don't know, maybe that's just my experience.
No,
But like, uh,
it's usually people of the same race doing that, because you
mm,
act like a white person on the inside, and so that's an insult that you're letting your brownness
yeah,
go.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
I will also say that college campuses are more liberal. People, like, if someone says something racist, they will be looked at negatively.
So, in your opinion, like who, in your opinion, should not study abroad?
Um, I think before I get into that, I want to say that I think every person should live away from their family at some point in their life, and that may not be abroad, that could be in India, but um, it's just definitely it's just something you should do to grow a little bit, to understand what it's like to take care of yourself, because I think there's too many adults who don't know how to take care of themselves even to a basic level. Um, I think one of the biggest considerations when it comes to studying abroad, and also was a big consideration for me, was the financial burden of it. Um, I think studying in Europe a many is a lot cheaper than studying in the US, and I got into some great programs that I really wanted to go to actually in the US, and it turned out that for my masters, and it turned out that coming to Europe was less than half the price, and it became a decision between, do I have to take a loan or do I not? Can I go without taking a loan? And it the best option for me was to not take a loan of, you know, some absurd amount. Like in the US, it would come to like, at a really good degree, which is the one that I like, the University of Michigan, for example, is the one which I really wanted to go to for my masters. Would have come to almost 1 crore over 2 years, and I don't want to take that loan. I think it's just that simple. So yeah, that's definitely some considerations there. But if you can afford to go abroad, I think it's definitely a life changing experience, um, and it improves your money management skills as well. Because I mean I'm not poor in India by any means, but when you come here, it's just I have to live off a certain amount of money that I have, and what I can afford in India, I cannot necessarily afford over here. So yeah, you have to be very conservative with it. But yeah, I think it has changed so many aspects of my personality in terms of my own independence, um, my ability to make friends and talk to new people. Um, Again, like I said, the money aspect of it, uh, skills when it comes to like cooking, when it comes to cleaning, which are basic life skills, but you do still you need to learn them, and you won't if you live at home in India typically for your whole life. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the general overview of who maybe should and shouldn't consider going abroad.
To everyone listening to this podcast episode today, I think they have a very clear understanding of things that are not talked about while going abroad. And that is what our podcast is for. Thank you, Kush. We had a very good discussion today, and I hope you also enjoyed being here. And with that, I would like to say come back for our next episode that is going to come soon, and follow a Song and a Book podcast on Instagram, on YouTube, and Spotify to keep updated with what we are bringing next.